First question, how old is the tradition? The proper word is how ancient is the tradition? It was founded in the Himalayas. It goes back 4 eons ago, which would make it what?
5,000 years, right?
About 5,000 years.
So, question on that, was that before the Egyptians then?
Oh,
or-
yes.
So, did the information from the Egyptians' knowledge come from the Himalayas then? Okay.
And they put it in their own context.
As all cultures do, right? Yeah, so, okay.
Evolutionary speaking, on which came first? The chicken or the egg? Next one, the seed or the great oak? The chicken and the oak. They came first. They were projected by a sage in full bloom, with all its accoutrements that they could. Universe is the product of the sages. How to practice detachment and love at the same time. If it's an act of love, you are already detached. I'll come back to that. It needs more explanation. Put it by there. That's just to make you think. Connected to it, will you talk a little bit about why love needs protection? I always get stumped with this when I start to think. Quote, isn't love the opening door? No. Knowledge is. Without knowledge, can you love something? If you don't know it? Knowledge leads. Love is hot on its tail. Isn't it love that is all-powerful? Yes, but wisdom is more powerful. Some people say God is love. Which God? Who said it? What follows is, then, does God need protection? Okay. We'll talk about this and keep coming back to it too. When you plant an acorn, now an acorn is not a plum tree, or a rose bush, or a lily pad. What makes the acorn an acorn, do you suppose?
Potentiality.
DNA.
The DNA, yeah.
The oak tree.
In its unique DNA, no doubt, because it's acorn DNA, right? So the acorn is what it is because of its nature. Now, if you plant that acorn and it gets sufficient sunlight, and you water it, and it has adequate nutrients, what will happen, most likely?
More acorns.
Or acorn.
Not yet.
It'll grow.
Tree. Tree.
Gotta become a tree.
Well, yeah.
You know how long it has to remain a tree before it gives off another acorn?
50 years.
50 years.
Oh,
Not bad, huh? Before it produces an acorn.
I didn't know that.
Now, when you were born, if we gave you enough sunlight, little nutrition, kept you warm occasionally, what would happen?
Grow,
Really? You think so?
yes.
Well, no, you need food, right?
You'd have a little nutrition.
Best nutrition.
What kind of thing would you be if that's all you had, though? Think about it.
The body.
So you need, in addition to the natural ingredients that you could raise an acorn with, you need much more.
Love.
Thank you. Now, the care that you would receive, which would be the expression of love for the givers, would hopefully enable you to become your nature. So in addition to the natural ingredients that often nature can survive upon, you need additional ones from those creatures that resemble you. Now, when you were a little girl or boy, you didn't know who you were. Oh, you had the name of the family, you were in the clan, but you had to go to school, did you not? You had to learn to articulate the language so that you could communicate back and forth. In other words, you were born with amnesia. You did not know who you really are. You knew you were a human being. But what kind of human being were you? Now, as you grew up, for example, when Dan grew up, he didn't realize until he was 5 years old that his first name wasn't Shut Up.
Very smart child.
Swami, can I ask something before you go on?
Yes.
Is the Christian take on amnesia original sin?
No,
No.
they made that up. Get you to depend on them. Anyway, so when Dan finally came up, got past Shut Up, discovered his real name, he still was wondering, well, what am I going to be, right? Don't you ask that question as a boy or girl? What do I want to do when I get older? Or someone, your aunt or uncle comes and, well, what would you like to do when you got to be an adult? I don't know. So what do? You look around. I'm going to be a pilot. I'm going to be a rose gardener. Okay. I'm going to be a banker. What do? You start dabbling. You start to get interested in hobbies. And you start to collect things, dolls, stamps. You get interested in computers. Now notice what's happening. You're knowing more about society, and you like to go on vacations with the family and learn how to fish. You discover what it's like to live in Minnesota, which only has 3 seasons. I won't tell you which ones they are. In other words, you are unlike the oak or the acorn, which has a very limited nature compared to yours. You start to explore. In other words, you make choices. What you choose is always something that is lovable. You'll never choose evil, per se. You'll always and somehow feel this is going to benefit you. Why else would you eat ice cream? You don't want to eat something that tastes terrible. Yes.
Did the sages dream up human then? Or is there some evolution involved, plus
That's
the
a
dream?
good one.
That is a-
I'm not sure. I'll have to come back to that one. I'm not sure on that. So as you grow, you keep desiring, trying things out, testing. Some you like more than others. You gather friends. Sometimes you try things that wind up hurting you. Okay, that's enough of that. So your nature is a nature that has to keep evolving. And then you start asking those big questions. What's it all about, Elfie? Why am I here? ultimately, where am I going? How do I get there? The quest you're on is a quest in which you want to, as it were, fulfill yourself. And that's an act of love. And then along the way, you share yourself with others, another act of love. But you have to know ahead of time what you're getting into. Otherwise you could get hurt. So knowledge introduces you so that you can love. They go together. Now as you're getting older, you're getting a little smarter. We call that learning wisdom. And as a result, you can, as it were, kind of bask in that. You can be happy in yourself. But the reason you're happy in yourself is because you can reflect on what you are doing and attaining and acquiring. And you can enjoy the fact that you have done that. And the word for that in Greek is called eudaimonia, which means happiness. Each of you have to make your own happiness. And each of you can do it a little differently. At the same time, becoming happy is that which fulfills your nature. You're meant to be a happy being. And notice, the more you know about yourself, about the universe, nature, the happier you become. Now what the Greeks didn't know, but they came awfully close, is what our tradition then finally puts on the top as the frosting. For them, happiness, eudaimonia, was someone who was mature, wise, virtuous, who was savvy with the world, rightfully pleased with herself or himself. That was the limit. What the sages brought was, you can go beyond that. But you don't denounce what you have, you build even further on what you have. We call that, in their technical language, samadhi. It's like a post-happiness. And again, where do you get the idea that this exists? You get suspicions, you get intuitions. You know at times you're so damn skillfully aware of certain things in your field, whether it be business, people, whatever. You're truly savvy. And you know that a lot of it just isn't pure reasoning. You get insights. We call it intuition. And what seems to happen in history is when enough people get to a certain level, they discover astonishment. Have any of you ever seen the aurora borealis?
Mhm.
Now that is astonishment. Would you not? It just holds you. You're transfixed. We call that wonder or astonishment. You endure what James Joyce said, an aesthetic arrest.
It's awesome.
That's awesome. And what happens then? You didn't reason to it. You couldn't buy it. It occurred because you were disposed and receptive. And that's how the sages lead us. It's by astonishments, again and again and again, until finally you realize you are immortal. Religions tell you they can't prove it. Now you'll prove it to yourself. And everything you have known is valid and truthful, but there's an expansion that even goes deeper than pure reason. It doesn't nullify reason, it simply advances it. Because now you know immediately. And there's something magical that will occur once you cross that border in consciousness. You can walk up to the oak and you know its entire history just by gazing upon it. I know that's hard to believe. You get a glimmer of this. I love that word, glimmer. Sometimes when you meet a stranger, and there's something about this stranger, maybe good or bad, that you know instantly what you know is true. And later on, it's proven. You got it? Mm-hmm. Now expand on that, so that the moment you gaze upon something or someone, know their whole history, even their future. Even their future. And you can even make the suggestion. It doesn't mean it has to come true. It means that's where they're heading, because they're still evolving. So often Swamiji would step in and say, I wouldn't travel on that day if I were you. And everybody I saw that wouldn't take his suggestion got hurt or killed. He can't stop things because there's so much in the world that is focusing upon certain crisscrosses, but he can alert you to possibly step aside from it. So you always have your liberty to go or not to go, to choose or not to choose. And how far? It's up to you. Now, where does meditation come in? Meditation is not here to give you knowledge. Forget about that. That's not what its purpose is. Meditation is self-training in becoming aware of the fullness of reality. It's the training that prepares you to have the astonishment, the contemplation. The goal of life is not meditation, it's contemplation. You want to know everything. You want to become everything. You want to live with the gods, as it were. And the principle means that you sooner or later find out what to do is meditation and a life of virtue. Life virtue means you love the good and you do the good. You do it, not just, gee, isn't that nice? You do it for yourself, for your friends, at the appropriate time, which is called prudence. Do the right thing, at the right time, in the right way. You have to learn that and stumble along the way till finally you get proficient. You become an artist in living intelligently. And you can live forever. The monks in Swamiji's cave. Okay, now let's go back on it.
Swamiji, can you repeat what you said, what meditation was? How did you word that?
I'll have to say it a different way because I can remember. It comes at me.
Yeah.
Meditation is what prepares you to be receptive to the awesomeness of the truth of life. Is that too complicated? I can say it again, differently. All right, yeah? Meditation is that voluntary act in which you release the limitations of what you think is the be-all and end-all, and you open yourself up to being astonished by even greater truths. You know, it's like this. You bake a cake, like a lemon cake. And you think there's nothing finer until someone introduces you to a chocolate layer cake. You think, oh my God. But you were ready. You didn't refuse it. Now there's nothing wrong with the lemon cake. It's good, it's valuable, it's wonderful, but the chocolate layer cake expands your repertoire.
Where does the tiramisu come in?
Shh. That's sublime. Then you become a god. Now, all of nature, one of its principles and essential roles, listen to this one, is to beckon you on to go deeper into nature. Nature out here. Now, you know yourself what it's like to go out and watch a falling star. Because right now, very few of you know that there are other levels of reality with beings who exist in it. Have you ever heard of a David? These are spiritual beings, more conscious of life than you are, but have no body. They can reveal themselves if they want, and if you're in the right disposition. Why waste time on somebody if he's not ready? You know, it's like training somebody for an occupation, or learning how to play golf or tennis. If you don't pay attention, the teacher isn't going to waste time with you. Now, may I tell you a story that occurred to me? When I lived on Summit Avenue, we had a very large backyard. We had pine trees that went up 7 stories. We had a bench there. We put a water pond in the center of the yard so the birds could come and have water. And I used to go out there and just sit there. And the crows would come down. And they'd look at me, tilt their head, and I'd say, "Hi guys, enjoy the yard." It took them weeks, but they finally got to the point where I could sit there and they'd go around me picking up seeds from the ground. And as I'd walk out and go to my car, if they were out there, they wouldn't fly away anymore. They said, "Oh, that orange guy's okay." And I became quite fond of them. They even set up their nests and had young ones. And one day I heard a lot of screeching, and I got to know their sounds. And I read about them, and they have 47 different types of sounds. And what you hear, the sounds you hear, is for everybody. They're talking to the crowd, like you do. But I used to stand by the tree and I'd hear this meow, meow. And I thought there were cats up there. It was the crow. That's how he talks to his family. So here I'm learning all about this firsthand. Huh? I read and I went back out, and sure enough. Well, one afternoon I heard this terrible screeching. I knew something was wrong, and I peeked out my window and I saw one of the birds had fallen in the water and couldn't get out, this brownie. So I rushed down the stairs, put some gloves on, and I went in there very carefully and lifted him out and tried to shake him, get the water off. And the crows were watching me like mad. They could have attacked me. They were just flying around me, just watching what I was doing. And I laid him in the grass, or her. I said, "You'll be all right." I heard him. About a half hour later, he was gone. So we became friends. One day, Davey and I were coming back from England. And the cab driver pulled up in front of the house. It was in the autumn. He was Mexican. And I got out of the door on his side. And I noticed he glanced over at the yard and he got very nervous. In fact, I could tell he was afraid. I thought, that's right. You know, I couldn't quite see because I was on the door, top of the roof blinded me, so I couldn't see the front yard. So I went and got the bags and I was going to come and give him a tip and he just roared out. Well, that's strange. And I looked over at the back yard and there was the front yard rather, there was like a blanket of black. And all of a sudden it lifted. It was a murder of over 100 crows. 100. There were more. That's as fast as I could count. They just lifted as I walked through the gate.
My
How about that? So then I thought to myself, why do the crows keep going into my life? I gotta find out why. So I grabbed Teresa one afternoon and said, I'm going for a drive to an Indian village. American Indian, they'll know. So I drove across into Wisconsin, which is not too far from St. Paul. And I knew what a town would look like. I would get the feeling. And I drove and I finally said, maybe down here. And I felt this, uh-oh, I'm in the right area. I can feel it. And I pulled into the town and sure enough, you could tell they're mostly Indians. Okay, who do I go? I said, okay, we'll try this one. So I walked into the store. And here's Whitey, you know, coming up. And I said, excuse me, my name is. I wonder if you'd be so kind, could you direct me to one of your compatriots that might know something about why crows are into my life so much? She looked at me and says, well, the woman you want to speak to is called Ann. She's in the next block, she works in a shoe store, but it's up to her whether she'll say anything to you. I said, thank you very much. And I roared out, went down. I walked in and I knew instantly who Ann was. She was about 5 foot tall, very cute, about 50 years old. And I walked up to her and said, excuse me, I was told by so-and-so that you might be able to help me understand why crows are appearing in my life so much. And she just kind of looked at me. And suddenly there was a swirl of energy around our waist and we pulled in closer like this. And she looked up and said, did you feel that? I said, I did. Now I'll tell you. She wanted a sign. She said, they have chosen you. Really? Yep. They're fond of you. They're your talisman. They will guide you if you ask them. You have to contemplate on them. You go in, close your eyes, calm down, picture them, ask a question, and just wait. They will tell you. As Jim knows, the crows come around us all the time. They even warn me when I'm in danger. If I'm driving down 94, they'll come swooping right towards my windshield and scoot away. And sure enough, a car will come flying out from the side, but I'm alert. Huh? Now, my point is this. Nature wants you to keep evolving so that you have that kind of familiarity, not only with your talisman, but anything in reality. Because like the crows who will trust me, all of nature finally grows to touch, to allow you to get that close to them because they know they can trust you. And you know the story about Swami in the wintertime in India, when Devi and I were there. And we were closing the ashram outside of Nepal. And Devi was upset because we were planting seeds like crocus and tulips. And we weren't going to be around to see him blossom. And he noticed the scowl on her face and he asked her, why? What's wrong, tree? So I won't be here when they come up. Oh, I see. And then Swami thought for a minute, would you like to see a plum tree? They're beautiful. Oh, well, this is February, Swamiji. Yeah, I know. The day was Tuesday, and he said, on Thursday, I'll have it blossom for you. And I thought to myself, yeah, sure. You know me. I'm from Missouri. Okay. So when he went in, I snuck around the house. I wanted to measure the bud on that plum tree. So I went out, my magnifying glass, of course. You know, it was about, what, almost a quarter of an inch. I said, no way. In 2 days, no way. So, next day I was out there again. No, it hasn't changed. And the night before, I was out there again, while there was still moonlight looking. I said, oh, no, nothing's grown. So the next morning we got up, and as we're eating breakfast, Swami yelled, "Tree!" Tree got up and ran faster than I've ever seen her. And he was on the other side of the house where the plum tree was. And as I ran around, the tree was in full blossom.
Oh my
I said, this is not possible. Then he took tree around the other side. The crocus were up in full bloom with tulips. This is February 5th. They don't blossom this early. Why? Because they trust him. In other words, your love for life, people, and nature, when you love someone, you trust them. You give them anything you want. So nature gave Swamiji what he wanted, a little power, so that, okay, we'll blossom for you. That's what's meant to happen in your life. And it already has in small stages, in limited ways. But as long as you keep meditating and living the life of virtue, you keep preparing yourself for those acts of astonishment that are coming to you, because you're opening up so that you can perceive them. Okay, let's go on. This is a tough one. Swami Rama says the 3 diseases that often cause death, strokes, cancer,
Heart attack.
and heart disease, yes. And everybody, of course, is afraid of them. All 3 are related to the, he says, to the thinking process. Okay, hang on. Then he goes on to say, psychosomatic diseases originate in your mind and thinking processes. And all are reflected in your body, yes, and physical being. Could you please comment on this, especially in reference to Lorraine's passing? We had a student, for those of you who know, who was with us many, many years. We met her in New York, way back in the 80s, with Swamiji, and she was a grandmother, a very delightful, feisty young lady. And what, about 2 months ago?
February 10th, she
Yeah.
died.
She had a stroke in her apartment. She's about 2 miles from me. And she collapsed on the floor. And 2 nights passed, and her son kept texting her, and he couldn't figure out, and yet he knew she was in there, so he came and he broke the door down and he found her. She was still alive, but her body was just falling apart in every way possible. And he took her to the hospital. They tried to resuscitate her. They were going to put her on, what's that, dialysis machine for the kidneys and so on. And she stayed unconscious, I think, for 3 days, wasn't it?
No, till Saturday, so it was 6.
Yeah. 5 to 6.
Then she died. She never came back. Now, in one sense, that's a blessing when you think about it, because her life was ruined. The body had just collapsed inside. Everything. Now, the question is, why, if she was a student? Well, and since it's a psychosomatic disease, which it is, why did she have it? I can't fully answer that. She was a very, very energetic woman. I would say somewhat driven. She loved being a grandmother, which she just became. I don't know really why she did it, why the Kurt put it better. So I really can't answer this question on this one.
Don't we choose before we're even born how our life is gonna play out?
We can change that.
Oh, you can change.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's not carved in stone.
Okay.
You have an orientation, basically, which you want to do, huh?
Mhm.
And then you can modify it or withdraw it. So I don't know in her circumstances. You hear both opposites attract and like attracts. Like, which is it? Both. You can't help but admire a skillful person. There's just something about it. There's your like being attracted. But you are opposite to that person at the same time. You don't have that skill. And ultimately, only what is valuable, good, even pleasurable, will attract. Nothing negative will attract you. In fact, you avoid it if possible. Look at it this way. What do you want to do with your life? That's one of the reasons you come out here. To awaken that up again. And just kind of look at it. Says, do I want to keep endorsing the direction I'm going? Got a lot of things I'd like to acquire, perform, get rid of. Okay. Let me scan them again and see. All right. So basically, we'll always be tempted in varying degrees. So, get used to it. Turn around and face the question, why does this tempt me? And answer it in your own head. Do a little NLP on yourself. It's the easiest way to face temptation. Don't try to run from it, hide from it. No. Turn around and face it and say, why are you attracting me or bothering me? Just face it. Put it out there, so to speak. And then go at it. Easiest way to get rid of this thing and resolve it. For those who are not going down the renunciate path, is there a renunciate around? What is the best for us to move down a good spiritual path? Well, this is what I just said. Follow your nature. That's it. There is no other way you're going to get what you really want because of the being that you are. You were born with the potential to fulfill your nature at this time and space in history, in this land, so make the most of it. That is your spiritual path. It's got nothing to do with prayers, kneeling, rosaries, going to church. It's learning to understand what it means to be a human being in this world full of beings and follow it out and fulfill it because you are what we call a potentiality. You went from childhood to teenage years, finally to adulthood. You learned, you bumped your way along the way, and you're still fulfilling yourself now as an adult, but hopefully enjoying life much more than you used to. You're avoiding ways to skin your shins. You know, you're realizing if you have too much sugar, what it'll do to you. Okay, this is the way we do. We zigzag, get banged up a little bit, and move on. But the point is, nobody can avoid what they are without a lot of pain. Ignore eating good food, ignore exercise, ignore sleeping properly, look what happens. You're gonna be in pain, baby, because that's the nature of reality. You can't change that. You have to learn how to abide with it and take all the gifts that it's really waiting to give you. Nature's dying to share itself. You know, that's it. You gotta fall in love with your nature. And it'll all come. Because it's meant to. Nature's dying to share its gifts with you. So it's all about falling in love. Each of you are unique. We're not just all common. Huh? Your gender's different. Your upbringing was different. Your interests, they may coalesce at times with your friends, but each of you, in your own unique way, are the artist of your life. And you choose the pace that you want to go to fulfill it. And that's entirely a voluntary effort that can't be forced upon you.
I like what you said. I'm paraphrasing, but meditation increases, no, it's not the word I want. Meditation disposes your potentiality to blossom.
Correct.
Your potentiality.
Your ultimate goal in life is contemplation. I once visited Niagara Falls, and I was stunned. You've never seen anything like it. Now ask yourself, what makes you stunned? Think in your own life, where you've come upon something in nature now that just enthralled you. Ask why.
Beauty.
Beauty. You cannot resist beauty. I'm serious. Beauty is not selfish. Beauty is not greedy. Beauty, as it were, gotta keep using the word, enthralls. It overwhelms. Because there's something about the truth of the existence of beauty that you are made for.
But it's all in the eye of the beholder. If
No.
that sandhill crane flies over and you recognize it as being a beautiful object moving through the sky, if you looked at that, you might not think that's something to shoot.
Because you're not disposed.
Pardon?
You're not disposed to see the objectivity of the beauty. Beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is objectively true. But you have to be disposed in order to grasp it.
And that's where meditation comes in.
And that's where meditation is. Meditation prepares you. It trains you so that you will have the capacity to absorb the truth of this beauty and thus yourself be expanded. Why do you think Swamiji's master finally said, I'm going all the way? This is his master, not Swamiji. He could no longer resist the beauty.
This is when he wouldn't come back, you mean?
That's right. Who would want to come back?
Well, I wonder that.
You live in infinity
Yeah.
of beauty. Would you ever want to come back? Infinity of beauty. Just think about it. And it gets richer and richer because it's an infinity. There's no end. And that, guess what? It makes you immortal. You can never die or be hurt. Swami Rama was at that stage when I met him where he always knew what was coming down the pike towards him. Can you imagine?
Oh, that's why you left Holmesdale, right?
Yeah.
Because he knew.
He knew and he saw and he was way ahead. How can I say it? If he saw injury coming towards him, why stand there and get hit? Huh? It's stupid. So he just sidestepped. And he could look at you and see what's coming down the pike for you too, and he'd try to guide you so that you really would absorb it properly. And if you were going to get hurt in any way, he'd always make a notation. He couldn't stop karmic flow, as it were, but he could tell you how to sidestep it or enjoy it more. And that's what you will be. Now here's the ironic aspect. The beauty, at the same time, is infinite wisdom. So when you are wrapped in it, it's like you're married to it. And so she gives you everything she has, the wisdom to live. Always in her presence, or if you want to go visit another planet, go ahead. I'll still stay with you.
Is that union love?
Yes. That's the union of love. The attraction is love, but the union is the fulfillment of that attraction.